What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be doing the ToAH hard bosses for 70, 80 and 90 for this month's rotation. And just so you know that the way to tell that it's ToAH hard, you can see the purple sky, alright, that means it's ToAH hard. But anyway, this is the team I use for the first stage, Veromos. Veromos is actually very easy in my opinion. I think a while ago people used to think he was quite hard, but he's actually he's not like, I don't feel he's that difficult to do. And pretty much every month whenever he's on the rotation for ToAH hard, I'm able to just auto him. But this is the team. Wait, this is not my standard team. Normally I would use Verad, but I wanted to make a team that is like fairly achievable for most people, right? I know that there's units that aren't farmable, but I mean they're nat 4s, right? And there are units that you can use to replace them. So first off, we've got Beretta, standard ToAH unit, right? The Siren is the main one here. The reason I put the Siren in is mostly to speed up the run. You don't actually need to use the Siren. Like normally when I just do ToAH hard normally throughout the when I'm just clearing it for the rewards, I don't even like switch to Siren in. But for the purpose of the video, it will speed up the run because he can Oblivion these arenas, and it makes it a little bit easier to kill the Pernas and stuff once we get to them. Then we got Veromos. So Veromos is here to stun the ads on the boss stage. He can also remove things like the glancing and attack break and stuff like that, and he can also tank the Hwadams. Alright, so you know where the damage is going for the Hwadams. Then I've got Chasun there. Chasun you can replace with any healer. You could still use like Bella if you wanted to, but yeah, like Chasun's my best healer, so I use her for this, right? And Brian is there for more of like insurance, like for autoing. Like I usually use Brian just to make sure that in case someone happens to die randomly, that he can revive them. But you don't have to use him. You can use you can use like another healer if you want. If you're manually doing this, you could just use like say a healer or Mav, anything like that, right? Or like just some crowd control even. If you happen to have things like Verad or like a tanky Tyron or something like that, you can use that as well. Because crowd control will help you reduce any damage or incoming damage from the Pernas in the boss stage. Now, the way to do this is you want to focus down the Hwadams, right? You focus them down one by one. You can try, if you can, let them die to dots, right? Because that way, like the passive of the other Hwadam won't kick in if the Hwadam is dying, or like if any unit is dying to dots, right? It won't protect them. If you do direct damage to them while they're low and it's gonna kill them, that's when Hwadam's passive kicks in. But if you are manually doing this, you could like get one Hwadam really low and then use the Siren to Oblivion the other Hwadam, and that way that's also another alternative way to stop the Hwadam from getting healed, right? So obviously just focus down one Hwadam, then move on to the next one, then you just have to deal with the Pernas, right? During all this you need to tank through the damage, so make sure you, like, no matter what team composition you're running, try to bring a good wind tank, right? So both Chasun and Brian are pretty decent tanks for Pernas, right? And try to, you obviously want to try to minimize the damage you're taking by bringing any crowd control that you can. So like Veromos is there for like partially that. He's not reliable, but he does provide it, every now and then. He also provides extra dots onto the Hwadams and stuff to make it easier to kill. And obviously Despair runes are also a nice option as well. For my team, I'm using Brian and Beretta on Despair. So a little bit of extra stuns, helps you mitigate all the damage. If you can bring attack break for the Pernas, that would be even better. And that's pretty much just like rinse and repeat. Just focus down the Pernas, and then once Veromos is alone, like he doesn't really do that much, to be honest. Even like with 5 ads up, Veromos' damage is like probably the weakest out of all these units, right? You can see like it didn't really hit my Tessarion very much, but if Perna hits you, he'll hit you fairly hard, right? Now, if you don't have Tessarion, you'll still have to. Obviously, you have to kill the Pernas twice each, right? That's still fairly easy to do because they won't actually get that many turns to cool down the stuff, because you should be stunning them with like things like Veromos and Despair Stun, right? If you stun them with or if you stun them at all, then when they have their turn, they won't refresh the cooldown of their passive, right? So it's so you want to bring some stuns for that purpose. If you bring freeze, it won't stun, like it won't be considered, like it's not the same as stun. So if you freeze the Perna and they have a turn, they will cool down their passive by 1 turn, or any of their cooldowns really. So stuns are preferred, but worst case scenario you can bring freeze as well, as long as you have enough if you have enough damage or dots to kill the Pernas before they get the revive back up, which should be like not too bad, because in ToAH they're not like sped up like crazy, unlike in PvP where they might have more turns, they have a violent procs and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that in ToAH. Alright, so once Veromos is learned, it's pretty much just rinse and repeat. He has like minor self-healing, but it's nothing really game-breaking, right? Because it's just like remove 1 dot and yeah, then he heals for like a small percentage of his health. You should be able to out-damage like that heal quite easily, especially if you bring a defense breaker. You can't Oblivion the boss, of course, with Tessarion, but that doesn't matter. He can still defense break him. Just stack up like as many harmful effects, additional harmful effects. So you can stack up. For my team, I can stack up heal block, glancing, and attack break. Right. So that will make it easier to keep him from like removing armor break as well. That way you can definitely out damage him. Alright, so pretty much rinse and repeat here after that. So I'm just gonna move on. I'm gonna skip to the next boss. Alright, now we're up to Artamiel, which I think most people will be most interested in, because I think he's probably the hardest boss this rotation. So this team that I'm using is pretty similar to the Veromos team, right? So the only change I did was to take Tessarion out and put ToAH in. So if you happen to have a Tessarion, I would highly suggest you to run it, because there's a lot of passives on the ads on the boss, and even this Lich stage they all have passives, so he would actually make it a lot easier if you happen to have him. But I just wanted to show you that you don't need to have Tessarion. So as far as the team lineup is concerned, you obviously want to have Beretta for dots. You want to try to include the following roles for your team. So first off, the obvious role is to have a healer. Secondary, you want some crowd control, so stuns or freeze, even bombs. If you're running like a tanky bomber, that's fine as well. Debuffs are great, like especially heal block is probably the most important, because Artamiel has a heal, so you definitely need a heal block for that purpose. You also want to have a taunt if you can, as like a backup. I'll talk about the taunts a little bit later once I get to the actual boss stage. Then you want some attack break if you can, preferably AoE, so it's like Brian fits the bill perfectly, right? But if you don't have a Brian, you can use like any other unit that has an attack break, and even like a single target will help you. And then optional is to run like a defense buff. So even though Artamiel strips on his first skill, it's I would recommend running a defense buff just to help you mitigate the damage from his ads, right? Because they're gonna revenge you, and obviously if you have a defense buff, it will reduce the amount of damage that you're taking there. And then finally, you want to have it's preferable to have a dark tank, right, and also a water tank. Alright, so the water tank is to to take the damage from the Wind Monkey Kings, which you'll see soon. So the Wind Monkeys, when they do their normal skills, you want them to direct the damage to like your water tank, which in my case it's ToAH. And additionally, you want to direct the focus of all the light units to your dark tank. So for my case, I'm using Veromos. You don't have to use these units. Like, there's obviously definitely like heaps of alternatives that you can use, right? For example, if you want a dark tank, you could use, say, Jubel is the one I would recommend the most, because he provides a lot of the roles that I already stated before. And Diaz is another one. He's a little bit harder to get, but for those who happen to have farmed, you know, HOH before, for Diaz HOH, I mean, I think a lot of you guys probably should be able to deal with it already, but he's a good option for this if you happen to have him, or you're lucky enough to summon him recently. Also, the other thing I forgot to mention, the other debuff you want is defense break. Alright, so the reason why it's actually more of an optional one. You can see in my team I'm not running any defense break, but it's good to have it if you can, because if you can defense break Artamiel, it will reduce the amount of damage he does because his first skill scales off defense. You can also mitigate some damage from the light yetis, because the light yetis, their second skill scales off defense, so you can also mitigate that damage if they happen to move. But ideally, you would want them to be stunned if you can, but it's not always possible to, you know, stun everything, right? Especially because like a pure CC team wouldn't really, it's very difficult to work in this fight. You would probably need to have like a tanky crowd control unit, you know, to help you out. Alright, now I'm gonna put up ToAH stats here just so that you know like how he's built, because he's not a unit that I really show on any of my videos, because I actually just use him for world boss, as you can see from the runes that he's got right now. He's just on triple energy, he's on triple HP for the 246, and as I said, he's just on world boss runes, so he's actually very slow as well. Actually, he's not super slow, but he's not very fast. Alright. Now, if you want to build him properly, I would recommend you to run him on like speed HP, or you can still use triple HP if you want, if you have decent speed substats. I would try to give him to like probably at least 150 speed total if you can. The more the better, I would say. But you still want to give him some decent HP, so I would try not to go anywhere below like, you know, probably nowhere below 30k if you can. Just because like the more HP he has, the more likely he'll reduce the damage he takes with his passive. And also I would recommend to put him on violent if you can, but if you don't like have the violent runes, then you can give him like swift or something like that. Like, doesn't really matter what you give him. I know swift doesn't scale off his space stats very well, but like speed is helpful, right? It's always going to be helpful. Obviously the alternative is just to give him lots of like energy sets or something like that. You can do that too. Okay, so for doing the actual boss, you want to try to like reduce the amount of damage you're taking as much as possible, right? So you want to bring stuns, you want to bring like attack break, defense break, stuff like that. If you can bring glancing, even better. If you can bring slows, even better too. But you want to cover those, you know, those sort of basic. They're pretty basic, like ToAH hard strategies, right? Now, as you can see, the Yetis have a pretty high chance to revenge. So if you're running a Tsarian, make sure you try to silence them first. Then you just want to focus down units one at a time, right? So usually what I will do is I put the dots up from Beretta and then evaluate who's got the most dots and like who's taking the most damage. Whoever is the weakest, I focus fire them. And try to keep heal block on that unit as much as possible, because otherwise Artamiel will heal them. Also, as far as speed seeking is concerned, I would highly recommend to make sure your Beretta does not move first. Alright, you should make your Beretta move like second or third. So the unit that moves first should be either your defense buffer or like your crowd control unit, right? So whatever is like stunning. So you know, things like Talc or Basalt or Veromos, those are the units that should move before Beretta. Because if everything revenges Beretta, like he might die. Because Beretta is typically not that tanky, and like, you can make him tanky, but his base stats aren't as good as the other units, right? Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, you obviously just want to focus the ads down, and then once Artamiel is by himself, it's fairly easy to do. As you can see, he just wasted the heal block on there on that Monkey King. So that's why like try to keep the heal block up on whoever is on the lowest health. Now another alternative way to deal with this is to run skill reset units. Things like Delphoy are like useful for here because not only can she reset Artamiel to stop him from healing for at least like a turn or two, because for ToAH hard bosses they cool down their skills very fast, right? So skill reset is not foolproof, but it does help. So yeah, she can also provide things like cleansing, heals, and immunity. Immunity is quite nice for this too, if you can, but not like 100% necessary. It's along the similar lines to defense buff, in that at least it will stop like the Monkey Kings from stunning you, but the Artamiel can still remove the immunity anyway. So it's nice to have, but not a necessity. Okay, and so the way to stop Artamiel from healing, especially once he's by himself, right? Because you might be able to kill all the ads, but if you can't stop the Artamiel from healing, you'll never kill him, right? So you want to bring a heal blocker to stop him, like, or to like block that, or you can run a taunt, or even both. Okay, so here I'm running both, just like for safety's sake. Although I am like completely autoing this at the moment. If you were to manually do this, it'll be a lot easier, especially when the boss is by himself, because that way you can make sure your units are using the correct skills, using the heal block when it's needed, or using the taunt when it's not taunted, etc. So that's why, like, coming back to Jubel, he's very useful for this because he provides like he can tank all the light units, he can taunt the boss, and he can also defense break, and they're all reliable skills too. He's probably like the one that I would recommend the most. He's also the main farmable one too. You do need to make him a little bit tanky, a little bit fast as well. Like, it doesn't have to be super fast, but probably something like a speed HP build with some defensive substats as well. Alright, so as long as you can maintain the taunt on the boss, it will mean that he'll always use his first skill, right? Or at least like for that turn that he's taunted. That way he doesn't heal. So having those two layers of protection, like to stop him from healing, should help you. Like for me, I could just AFK. It might take me quite a while to actually finish this, but eventually he's gonna die, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. Rinse and repeat, right, from here on. Alright, so if you have any other questions about Artamiel, any units that you think might be useful, you want to confirm, feel free to ask me in comments and I'll answer you as soon as possible. So I'm going to skip to the next boss because otherwise this is going to take forever for it to actually die. Alright, so I'm going to skip to the next boss. Okay, now Jamire. So Jamire, his ads are double Zyros, double Cracker. A very deadly combination because obviously the skill reset from the Zyros, and if Cracker revives, she gives that unit invincibility and also resets the cooldowns. Very annoying with Zyros, obviously, right? And to make matters worse, the Jamire also has the refresh for the all his ads. So yeah, you wanna probably try to stop Jamire from moving if you can, but more importantly, keep all the ads crowd controlled, and especially the crackers, you don't want to let them move and revive if you can. Now, so the best way to deal with this stage is just pure crowd control, right? So for my team, I mean, I'm not running a healer, but it's probably preferable to run a healer if you can. So like maybe if you have like a bomber, like there's no excuse like not to have a bomber really, because you can always fuse a Jojo if you need to, right? But you can use either a bomber or you can use just any unit that has AoE, stun or freeze, something like that, right? So the reason I use the bombs is because they stun after they tick down, right? If you can bring a second unit that does crowd control, that would help a lot too. Or attack bar reset is another option you can do. So you can do if you stack a lot of attack bar reductions, so like things like Wuchi, Ganymede, Varad, like those sort of units that have mass ATB reset. Poseidon's another one. That's an alternative route, but obviously a lot of those are nat 5, so that's why I'm not showing you like that strategy. But yeah, these bombers can be replaced with any other like AoE unit. So things like Tyron, Prom, which is the light Grim Reaper, you can use that. The other Grim Reapers are okay too, like Frayne and the Water Grim Reaper. I forgot his name, Helios or something. Water Homunculus is another unit you can use for the freeze. So basically those sort of units to stop those ads from moving, right? And then you kill them with either dot damage from Beretta or from bombs, right? That's why I like bombs, is because they do good damage as well. Now I think Mav is an MVP here because one, he can taunt the Jumaiyah, and two, he can help you reset your cooldowns and allow you to bomb or like put dots up more or reset attack bars more, etc. Right? But most importantly is the taunt. If you taunt Jamire, he will never reset, and he will also never use the second skill, which is I think it hits like 2 or 3 targets for a fair bit of damage. His first skill doesn't really hit for much. You can out heal the first skill with Mav's self healing from his taunt. So I think all ToA, or anyone who's progressed this far to ToA hard, should have a Mav by now, right? He's like pretty much an MVP in most ToA stages. So for this reason, you can see here, like all my units are very low because something derped, and I think the Zyros was able to use his AoE. So obviously you want to avoid that. Like normally, like if that were to cause you to wipe, you just restart. I mean, you can still do it. There's a little bit of RNG involved in this fight, but they have managed to hang on by a sliver, so that's okay. Also, an alternative is to run something like a Basalt or a Talc, preferably Basalt, because he doesn't have elemental disadvantage against the Jumaiyah. But the reason, if you happen to have a Basalt, you run him because he can taunt a Jumaiyah, plus he can give you the sustain, right? He can heal, like if in case like things like this happen, like he can heal up your team and allow, like give you that recovery option. And apart from that, that's pretty much it. Like you just want to stop these ads from moving. I think it's almost impossible to actually tank through this. I've tried before. It's very hard to make it work because they do quite a lot of damage, and they just have so much synergy amongst all those ads, like all those abilities, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. So once you get Jamire by himself, it's extremely easy, right? Like as long as you can keep taunt up on the boss, like it's a piece of cake. But even if you can't keep it up on him, if you're running a healer, you can easily out heal the second skill damage quite easily. And if he's refreshing, like he can also waste a turn refreshing skills for his own skill. So like if he does that, then I mean it's better for you, right? Alright, that's pretty much it for the ToA hard bosses for this month. So if you have any further questions, again, ask me in comments and I'll answer you as soon as possible. So good luck with ToAH hard. Hope you can clear at least up to 80. But if you can clear 90 and above, then even better. Alright, so I'm gonna leave it here. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.